The last big home project we tackled was our DIY dining room renovation. This is what our dining room looked like when we moved into our home. We transformed this room completely by ourselves, and it's still one of the home projects I am most proud of. But getting here was not easy. This renovation took far more time, effort, and patience than we expected. I don't know if there was any blood involved, but sweat and tears were definitely part of the process. So let's look back on this renovation and talk about what the process actually looked like as this room came together.
I think that at this point we should just leave it as it is. We can call it rainbow trim. Sound good?
People always say it's just paint, it's easy to change, but when you live in an older home, it's not that easy. When we started working on this room, there were decades and decades of paint colors on these walls, built-in cabinets, window and door trim, and the door that's also in this room. Most people probably would have just added another layer on top of everything, but we decided to test our sanity and attempt to undo some of the decisions of homeowners of the past. Before we started stripping the old paint, we covered the floor with drop cloth and patched up some flaws on the walls and ceiling.
The first step to stripping anything is you want to make sure that you really second guess yourself, because this is going to take hours and maybe days, and it's not going to be fun. So ask yourself if you're sure that you want to do this.
That it will be worth it in the end.
Maybe.
Removing paint from wood is not easy. I think no matter what method or product you use, they all require a lot of patience and elbow grease. This step alone took us so many days.
We're on day 8,000 of trying to strip the built-in corner cabinets in our dining room.
It's only day 2. You can see some of the original wood now. This green was the first coat. So, I mean, most of this is smooth now. I think that there's still some of the pink that's raised, but most of this green, I believe, was mostly seeped into the wood. So I think we're still gonna do another layer.
For our DIY paint removal, we used Citristrip. Even though it took many passes to get down to the wood, Citristrip worked well for this project because it has a gel consistency. This was helpful for vertical spaces because liquid paint strippers tend to run down and don't soak into the paint as well. In full transparency, it took days to strip away all of the old paint, and we went through a significant number of Citristrip bottles. When we eventually made it down to the wood, it was really hard knowing we were about to paint over it after all of that work. But my vision involved color drenching the dining room, and while I did second guess myself, I decided to move forward with the original plan. Just when we thought we were done stripping old paint off of things, we realized we needed to decide if we wanted to keep the original hardware from the door. Discovering that beautiful brass was hiding under many layers of old paint, once again, we knew we had to recover the hinges and pins. To remove the old paint from the hardware, I soaked them in boiling water with vinegar and baking soda. This helped lift the paint enough for me to peel, scrape, and scrub it off. The pieces went back and forth to the boiling water multiple times during this process until they were eventually paint-free. This took a few hours, but it was worth it in the end. Another small detail we tackled during this renovation was painting the details of the room green. This included the vents, switch plates, screws, and outlets. We found outlet covers to go over the outlets. We did not paint the outlets directly. While they are small elements, I think this step really mattered when it came to achieving the color-drenched look. Finally, after weeks of prep work, it was time to prime and paint. In fact, so much time had passed that the painter's tape we had separating the opening from the living room to the dining room ripped off some of the living room paint, another project we had recently tackled, so watch out for that. Anyway, the first time I saw Magnolia Homes freshly cut stems paint, I fell completely in love, and I knew it needed to go somewhere in our home. It is a creamy mint green that feels both fresh and soothing at the same time. It's been a few years now since we've painted the dining room, and I am still in love with the color. It's especially stunning in natural daylight on a sunny morning. Since this room doesn't get a ton of natural light, it can lean cooler on cloudy days and in the evenings. Not enough for me to wish it were different, but it is a reminder to test the paint color you're considering for a room in a variety of lighting settings. Once we were done painting, I could really see my vision for this space coming to life. Putting the door back on with the restored brass hardware and fancy doorknob on it was such a satisfying moment. I was so scared that I would regret painting over the freshly stripped dark wood trim on the windows and doors, but it came out beautifully with everything being the same color. We were so burnt out by this point that we completely stopped working on this room for about 2 months. The trim was off during that time, so we didn't even get to soak in that this is finally done moment. When the motivation finally hit to finish the trim, of course it wasn't simple. Inside the dining room, there's the bottom of a staircase with a vent below it, along with another vent in the room. We had to cut lots of small pieces to trim around the vent below the staircase and build a casing to go around the other vent. After all the cuts and fit checks were complete, we then painted the trim. We could have waited to do this because more paint was required for the last step, but there were some parts of the trim that we thought would be easier to paint beforehand. So we chose to paint at 2 different points in the process. To secure the trim in place, we used a combination of wood glue for joints, liquid nails, and pin nails, and came filling in the holes from the nail gun with wood filler. Finally, we caulked around the top of the trim and painted it after it had dried. Now that the renovation part is over, it's time to do all of the fun stuff. Come back for part 2 so that we can decorate together.